It started off just for fun. I've always been able to do things when I know there's definitely an audience. So we started off, me and a few friends, doing sketches in front of actually it was only we did it once, and we wrote a few sketches and they went down quite well, and that was quite that cheered us up a bit. So then when I went over to England, I was still a music journalist, and that just began not to pay well. I suddenly realized that I would actually need some money to live. So I kind of backed out of music journalism, and I said, other people can do it. Why can't we do it? So I asked Arthur to come over, and he amazingly said yes, which is about the luckiest aspect of the whole thing. Because if he'd said no, I'd still be interviewing the drums, But he said yes, and then it just all happened, So we lived together for 4 years, writing on a really cheap rent. So we had time to learn the craft by writing sketches and not worry so much about our income, and it just took off from there, really. I mean, it used to originally be we just wanted to get the stuff on TV, so you had to write stuff that you thought was really high quality to get on television. But now that I know I can do that, it's more like a job, but in a good way. I need pressure, and I need deadlines and all that sort of thing. And Twitter has been useful this series because every so often I'll check the Twitter timeline and people are asking about the new series when it's out and stuff like that, and you begin to realize, wow, there's a lot of people waiting for it, and I better not let them down, and they're quoting old jokes at you, and you're thinking, oh, I hope I have something to beat that one in this series. So yeah, there's lots of pressure from different areas, and it all helps, It just kind of concentrates the mind. You think, okay, I've got these 16 unconnected ideas, and I need to turn them into 6 storylines. So you start looking for relationships and connections between the storylines, and they start forming in front of you. And then, you realize, oh, I've got 4 months left to write 6 episodes, so maybe I should start writing one. And then you have a first draft, and it's usually not very good, but that doesn't matter because you've got a little bit of time to make it better. And yeah, it's just, without that pressure, I think I'd still be working on series 2, Richard and I are big Seinfeld fans, and sometimes we'll write a scene where people get back to the office and describe the way they feel about a situation, which is kind of what would happen in Seinfeld. They'd go out, have their experiences, and then come back, and there'd be this big kind of retelling of the experience through dialogue. And they fall into certain habits, certain Larry David ways of expressing things. And because the show is so heavily influenced by Seinfeld and so kind of to me, that's the model. It's the perfect model of how to do a sitcom. But because it's so influenced by it, we occasionally, Richard will drop into a Brooklyn accent, and or what I imagine a Brooklyn accent to be, and we'll start riffing on that. But I think someone was saying there's an episode where Jen is going out with a guy and doesn't know whether he's gay. It's the work outing, of course, and someone said, well, that's just ripping off the Seinfeld episode where Elaine's going out with a guy and she doesn't know if he's black or not. It's like, oh, okay, so I'm not allowed to do anything where someone doesn't know something about someone and is trying to figure it out. Okay, So, but the thing is, because I love Seinfeld so much, and because I love the flavor of comedy they do, which is about awkward situations, basically. I am going to kind of fall into that voice every so often, and I've always admitted it. I'm a huge Larry David fan, but I've never taken a plot line. The only time I've ever seen a plot line on Seinfeld and said, oh, I can take that. I can actually take that idea. It was there's an episode in a very early series of Seinfeld where George quits his job. And then he goes in, and then he goes back, and he says, "I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't quit. I need that job, And he's been very vocal. He went in and he told the boss to stick it and stuff, And Jerry meets him afterwards and says, just go in tomorrow and pretend it didn't happen. And George says, really, do you think I could do that? He says, yeah, just pretend like nothing happened. And he goes in and it develops. But I thought, oh, that's such a funny idea, and it didn't really do what I wanted it to do. So we turned it into kicking Bishop Brennan up the arse. This idea of kicking them in the arse and just pretending you didn't do it, you know. So that was like a direct. That was kind of like that was like us thinking, this is a great idea, but we don't think it's been done perfectly, and we think we can do it and get more out of it.
No. What was that? Mice or something. Can you see anything? No, I can't. But just listen. Wait a minute. There seems to be a very crude watercolor painting of a man in a bishop's hat. Really? Let me see. You're right. Tell you what must have happened. Dougal probably didn't want you to be disappointed, so he must have drawn that himself. He meant well. Anyway, I'm sure you'll want to be off. Catch that ferry, huh? We'll order you a taxi.
Father Ted was Arthur Matthews. He used to do Father Ted as a character, as a stand-up character. And I always found it very funny, the voice he would put on when he was doing Ted. You could just hear, you just knew everything you needed to know because of the voice. It was just the voice told you everything. And so when you wrote a line as Ted, if it felt right, then if you just immediately know if it sounded right, if it sounded like Ted, you know. And that kind of naturally grew into Dougal and Jack, and well, Jack was very easy, but Mrs. Doyle, they just became very clear to us, you know. So that's kind of that's just literally a whole sitcom coming about because of the way Arthur would change his voice, you know. Whereas Black Books was the setting, the characters were already there. Even Bill Bailey was already there before I came in. I saw it performed on kind of stage at some sitcom tryouts, and it was the best thing there. And but it was really mad. It was too mad. I met Dylan afterwards, and I said, "You've got to do it. It's just got to be less mad. You've got to have, you know, you can't have 20 students killing themselves in the shop in the first episode," which I think is what happened. I used Dylan's character to talk about things that you know, like he hates doing his accounts, so did I. You know, I use different characters as mouthpieces sometimes.
Well, there's a thing here. Takings, £370.
That's good.
Yeah, but your outgoings were over £1,200.
Well, whores will have their trinkets. I can't take care of every little thing around here, you know? It's mayhem.
The thing I use Roy for, though, is I still feel very guilty about certain relationships I had where I broke up with people really badly and stuff like this. And I use Roy. I'm basically punishing myself through Roy. I'm making him suffer because of all the things I did.
And how are you?
I'm great. I am great. Yeah, I'm glad that we got together, Alison, because I think it's only fair that I be completely honest with you. The truth is...
Do you mind if I say something first?
Okay.
I've never been very good with words, so I wrote it down and it turned into a poem.
I'm sorry. Are you going to read a poem now? Is that what's actually going to happen?
Yeah, is that all right?
Wouldn't you prefer to text it to me?
It's a bit long for that.
Okie dokie.
Oh, gentle Irish eyes. Tousled brown hair. Smile as big as my favourite teddy bear. That's a bit corny. I might take it out or I might leave it in. Without you, I am just a husk.
I'm a husk.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Without you, I am just a husk. A dead thing. My new best friend is a razor, a rope, a noose to swing in. Without you, the sweet release of death would be all that could give me hope. When I see your face on my computer, I don't just see you, I see your future.
I think that the thing that's a real craft is writing scripts that people can read without wanting to kill themselves. Scripts are very hard to read, most of them. I get a lot of scripts, and usually I make it to the end of the second page because there's so many mistakes in the first 2 pages that it's just, they're just, you know, basically, and what usually happens later is that you go up to the writer and you say, I don't really understand why this guy's talking, and then another guy starts talking, and you haven't introduced him, and I don't really know who he is, and the writer goes, oh, well, basically, and it's like, no. It has to be in the script. It all has to be in the script. There's a brilliant description of the worst example of telling, not showing in a script, which is if someone were to write, a plainclothes policeman is walking down the road. That's bad script writing, because how do you know he's a plainclothes policeman? So, you know, you have to, if I find mistakes like that early on in a script, I stop reading. Even amongst many writers, there's this idea that scripts are made of dialogue. They're not. I once posted the script to Duel, the film Duel, Steven Spielberg's film about a truck kind of chasing a car. And I posted it on Twitter, and people were writing back laughing, saying, there's barely a line of dialogue in the film. It's like, what do you think they did? Just drew a picture of a car chasing a truck chasing a car and said, go and film that? There's beats of action, and they have to be very well and clearly described. So reading a script like Duel will tell you far more about how to write, how to be a script writer than reading a script that's, say, I don't know, a courtroom drama that's basically all talk, you know. And I do find there is a habit people have of everything's very dialogue based, you know. And you know, I guess it kind of has to be to some extent, because if you've got something like EastEnders that's on, you know, every day, then it's kind of hard to come up with it's hard and expensive to film moments rather than endless scenes of dialogue. But you know, it can still be done. Jimmy McGovern did it, you know. I don't see why other people can't do it. Buy books with titles like How Not to Write a Script, because they're really, really useful to beginners, because they're full of those mistakes and how to avoid them. And if you read one of them, you'll already be ahead of the pack.
Revisit Graham's comedy classics, The IT Crowd, Black Books, and Father Ted. All available now on 4OD.